So what's a personal goal that you have for yourself, Willie? What's a goal that you have for the companies that you're chairman of, the ones that you sit on the board of, and what's a goal that you have for the family?
Oh, God. So for myself, I'm actually doing a pretty good job of this right now, but reading more. So, I actually read a lot. I've always read a lot, but, when you're working, it tends to tilt towards things that are focused on the business that you're, a part of. Whereas now, I read fiction, I read nonfiction. I'm reading a book about the transition between Roosevelt and Truman, like that shorter period of time. Not, there's a massive amount of books, obviously, on Roosevelt and Truman, World War II, and all that. But so I've really been trying to read more and read more broadly, and I've been doing a pretty good job of that because I have a little more time on my hands. Goal for the businesses, I think it's really just to reach their potential. And, it's like I'm really proud of how Phil's led the loan store as an example. And I think there's more room to run with the loan store. But, if it doesn't get to the size of what Home Point was, I think that's fine. If it does, that's great too. But I think it's helping him kind of realize his full potential. And, as you know, he's very talented, and as is the team. And then for my family, it's like, well, I'd like my youngest daughter to get out of school because it seems like my kids tend to collect college degrees. I think my oldest is going to go back and get her PhD. So it's like they tend to collect them. But I'd like for her to get out of school. She's got one more year, my youngest.
That's grad school.
Yeah, she's in grad school at DePaul in Chicago. But I think it's always been just like very basic. It's just be a productive member of society. It's like financial success. It's like get you at least identified. We're fortunate enough as a family to have some means financially. So I've always encouraged them to do what you want to do. Don't do what you think you need to do to make money. Don't think what you think I want you to do or your mom wants you to do. It's like do what you're passionate about. And it's taken a little while sometimes for them to find their way. Not the oldest one. She kind of had figured out right away. But they're, the two younger ones are navigating to that, and it's just like be a productive member of society, like add to, what's out there. Because I think, I'll admit, probably maybe sound like an old guy, but I just think there's so many people that don't really focus on that these days. They just focus on themselves, like how much more can I get, and how much more pleasure can I have, and I'd like for my kids to kind of be looking out because they're gonna. They have a certain level of financial success that they can depend on. So it's like, go help other people. Go do things for others. And again, be a productive member of society. Don't be someone who kind of takes from society. So if that sounds altruistic or...
No. Excellent advice.
Yeah.
To your children. Excellent advice for me as a parent just to kind of keep in my mind because... As a father,
yeah. What do you do with your kids? Like they're young now. So
yeah.
Do they realize the privilege that they have?
We're in Newport Beach, and every kid around them is like ridiculously privileged.
Yeah.
So they don't even understand poverty.
Right.
And when I take them to like to go feed the poor or something, they're like in another world. They're
right.
like, what is this place? Because they don't understand. Like, we have their friends that are on baseball teams. Their parents won Super Bowl championships.
Right.
They're like 4 years ago.
Right.
So they're playing with the kids of Super Bowl champions. They don't even understand what they're.
Yeah, right. It's like everybody does this. It's no, almost nobody.
I never met a Super Bowl champion in my life, and you're just on a baseball team with their son.
Right.
So it's very a very weird world where we live, But
it sounds like you try to expose them to the wider world, right?
I try to expose them to poverty as much as I can. I try to let them realize that they got to serve and do God's work, and it's an ongoing struggle. And as I sit on this show and I bring on many privileged parents, and it's a discussion always. Glenn Stearns did a great job raising his kids,
right?
And they always find ways to get their kids to serve, and they always found ways to get their kids to work for everything they got. And I remember going to a party at his house, and his son was the valet driver. Like,
and he's got a nice house too.
he's got a $75 million house. His kids, parking everybody's car.
Nice.
So he managed to kind of instill that grit mentality in these incredibly privileged kids.
Right.
So it's just I talked to Mindy about that, and she was on the show too. His wife, like they're all about instilling that in their kids because they understand,
Right.
they're billionaires. Like, you're a billionaire, how do you instill that grit? Actually, I talked to Matt about that too yesterday.
Right.
So, so it's just something that's always a topic of discussion, because grit is something that, especially in this time, in this abundance, when we talk to people who have abundance and they understand, they have incredible grit, like, we need to pass that on to our kids.
Right.
You manage to pass it on, and and some parents don't. Some parents unfortunately fail at it. So it's just something I'm learning. I'm sure people who are watching the show are like, yeah, like they're getting great parenting advice. They're getting great entrepreneurial advice.
Yeah, well, like you said, I mean, that's the thing is, like, kids are out there. They're on their own at some level, right?
Yeah.
Or no matter how much you try to coddle them and helicopter them and privilege them, eventually they're out there every day. Two of my kids live in Chicago. They live in the city, right? It's like, I feel very comfortable with them living there. They've been there a bunch of times. Their mom's from there. They understand how to navigate. It's like, my oldest daughter lives in Pasadena. It's a little fancier there. It's like, it's all good. She has 2 roommates and they rent a house. So it's like, I think my kids they have a good amount of balance.
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that others you talk to are focused on it as well.
Yeah, every parent is. Matt's incredibly focused on making sure his kids just grind all the time. And he's with them, coaching all their games and every sport that they play. And Glenn did a great job too, and Pavan as well from SunWest. So these are like some of the biggest leaders in the space.
Right.
Now I like to close the podcast with a question that.
I thought you already asked me a bunch of questions.
The last question.
All right.
Every podcast guest gets this question, and it's a very important question to all of us because we're all going to deal with this. When you're in front of the pearly gates, what do you think God's going to tell you?
I think he's going to say I was a good man. I think that's what he's going to say.
That's awesome. Willie, thank you so much. Thanks for being on the show.
It's a lot of fun.
Willie Newman, legend of the industry, chairman of the Loan Store, board member on Aveo, board member of SOAR, absolute stud. God bless him. God bless your journey. I hope you hit all of your goals.
Thank you.
And we'll see you soon.
You too, Joe. Thanks.
Thanks, Willie.
All right.